Good morning and welcome to David Boles Live. This is now the beginning of our fourth week. Almost a month of live streaming Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Off for 2 days, always interesting to come back and say hello. And as you can hear, we have new music. This is called epic music. To me, it feels cinematic. And we're going to experiment a little bit with levels. Right now, I think it's a little bit too loud. So let's see what happens if we turn it down just a little bit and see if we can still be epic while still being heard. So it's been an eventful weekend. Lots of interesting things happening in the world. Lots of things to discuss today. And I guess we'll start our conversation off with the most important thing, which is merchandise. This is my beloved tie-dye shirt with my logo on it, my DB, David Boles logo. Somebody on Twitch made fun of this shirt, saying, oh, it's very 70s of you. And my reply is, thank you very much. It's exactly what I'm doing. Shirt runs a little large, so if you're interested in visiting our merch store, which we will just temporarily because we have some new things to show you, there's my shirt. It's a lot of fun. Different colors. It's big. It's a surfer shirt. Look at some new items we have here. We have Jana signing some interesting ideas that were part of our very first book, Hand Jive, which you can read for free with the videos downloaded from bolesbooks.com. Look for the ASL link. And you can read the book online for free as a PDF. And that was kind of a funky book. It wasn't our choice. It's what Barnes & Noble wanted with their Metro books in print. So this is Jana signing the B word. Her deaf friends love that shirt. And we haven't sold it for about 10 years or so, but now we have a merch store again, so we are bringing Jana back. This is Jana signing Monster. This is Jana part 1 of signing the S word. Okay, and this is Jana signing part 2 of the S word. So you can buy one for you, one for a friend, stand next to each other, and you'll make people who know sign language laugh. This is Jana signing Stinky. It was kind of an urban street book with urban slang. It was funny, it was interesting. Interesting experience. Here is Jana signing Vampire, which is one of my favorite signs. I think it's beautiful. Descriptive, of course. This is Jana signing Throw Up. Tongue is out. It's a very important part of sign language, sticking out your tongue. Some students have a hard time doing that because they think it's rude, but it is part of the language. We're going to talk more about sign language in a moment. This is Jana signing Too Bad. Tough times, too bad. Jana signing Who. It's a very popular shirt. Believe it or not, people do like these shirts. This is Jana, Frozen Jana on a tumbler. This is Frozen Jana on a shirt. It's my favorite photo of her. Taken a couple of years, massive blizzard. And she said, I can make it to work, and I can get back before they shut down the trains. And she went out in the snow, freezing cold, and she made it to work. And she took this photograph on her way to work. This is 10 feet outside of our building. She's already frozen. Oh, here's another tumbler. Jana on Halloween as a very scary butterfly. And Jana on a shirt as a very scary butterfly as well. And here I am, my Halloween sugar skull disguise. And here's the colorized version of what it looked like in real life. Same thing. Some people were asking for it, so hey, we'll put it up. All these you've seen before. So that's the pitch. Thank you for asking. Now next, we're going to briefly discuss this Aaron Rodgers debacle. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. Oh, it tires you out, but Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback for the Green Bay Packers in the National Football League. A lot of kids look up to him. He has a lot of fans. And he created a situation for himself that is quite unfortunate. The NFL requires its players to be vaccinated, and teams have to report to the NFL. And Aaron Rodgers never said he was vaccinated with the COVID vaccine, but he had alternate treatments, I guess. That was how it came out. So this is what he's been saying. I just wanted what's best for my body. He calls himself a critical thinker, but not a flat earther. I don't know what the difference is. And he consulted with Joe Rogan on the proper medical treatments. Not Dr. Joe Rogan, just regular Spotify streamer Joe Rogan. And Aaron Rodgers is currently taking ivermectin, zinc, and monoclonal treatments because he now has COVID-19. And it's really outrageous because, when it comes down to it, Aaron Rodgers lied to us, his fans, for profit. Now, if he doesn't want to take the vaccine, okay. He probably won't be able to play football. He runs the risk of getting infected, which he did. And when you don't play in the NFL, as I understand it, you don't get paid. Well, Aaron Rodgers makes a lot of money from football, but he also makes a lot of money as a spokesperson for commercials. He does an insurance commercial, many other commercials. And when you are a spokesperson for a brand, and the brand pays you a lot of money, you have a fiduciary duty, I believe, to have a good reputation, to be a right person, to be a moral person, to not lie. You want people to believe what you're saying when you are selling them something, be it pizza or insurance or whatever dumb thing out there that they're trying to pay you in order to have you make them money. So, Aaron Rodgers, he had a great football career, has a great football career. I don't think that's going to be where the damage is done. The damage is going to be done in his reputation as a person and in his reputation as a spokesperson who gets paid a lot of money. And he is a spokesperson, as I understand, for a hospital or a health system. And when this came out, they ran from him. They cut their losses and said, okay, we cannot deal with this fact of you taking these alternate treatments when we're a health system and we require our employees to have COVID vaccines. So Aaron Rodgers is getting killed, especially on Reddit. And it goes on and on. I mean, pages and pages of this stuff about Aaron Rodgers. It's unfortunate. Twitter. I declare immunity from the office. I declare bankruptcy. I declare immunity. Oscar says you just can't say the word immunity and expect anything to happen. So this is what happens when you become a duplicitous person, where you say one thing in public and then in the end you get revealed, you get shown for who and what you really are. And sometimes people are surprised. The people they were fans of, people they liked, discover that it's not true, and that you are not who you pretended to be in order to sell us healthcare or vaccines. But the most impressive part of this whole Aaron Rodgers scheme, scam, flim-flam, is how his cohorts, his peers in the press on Fox, especially Terry Bradshaw, have gone after Aaron Rodgers because they call him out, that he's a liar. He knows he's supposed to have the shot, and he lied about getting the shot. And Terry Bradshaw's a very interesting person. He plays this southern boy from Louisiana country bumpkin kind of personality. When he was playing football for the Steelers and on air, and you can't have that kind of career in professional football and a long-time career on television by being the stereotypical uneducated country bumpkin. And I'm not sure exactly why he plays that role, because he is very smart, he's very keen, he's an excellent businessman. But I guess Terry thinks that that kind of humor makes him money, and so far it has. So when he puts down that facade and gets serious and argues for the truth and for righteousness, it's really quite refreshing. And live on air on Fox, where they're NFL supporters, and Fox News is completely against the vaccine. Even though they're all everyone on Fox News is required to have the vaccine to work there, they're still against it on the air. It's a disconnect that's interesting. So the live discussion on Fox about the Rodgers situation, Jimmy said, "I'm disappointed in his selfish actions." Howie, possibly putting your teammates in jeopardy, is selfish. And Terry Bradshaw says, "Let me give Rodgers some advice. It'd be nice if he came to the Naval Academy and learned how to be honest." So it's all a big mess. And I've seen the Rodgers interview trying to explain his way out of this, saying, "Oh no, I'm not that kind of person. I'm this other kind of person." Okay, we'll see. Now, another thing that's all over the news this morning is an interesting story that they're making into a rescue. And the rescue is about using what some in the news are calling sign language, some are calling gestures, some are calling signals, some are calling silent communication. And it's all about this, which is something I didn't know about. I've been reading about it all morning, and I'm going to share with you what I learned. It appears that TikTok, which is a social media streaming platform, has some kind of hand signals that they share silently, which is the wrong word, by the way, in order to indicate danger or distress or domestic violence. Okay. That's interesting. But it's not sign language. Now, I know that there is a lot of work done with domestic violence, and there are some bars, at least in America, that have signs in the women's bathroom only, saying if you are on a date here in this restaurant, this bar, and you need help to get away from your date, go to the bar and tell the bartender something like, "Angela says hello." And that code phrase, and then you go back to your seat and your date where you feel trapped. And that code phrase is supposed to trigger an intervention on behalf of the staff or the bartender, where the staff goes over and creates an emergency or asks for some kind of separation or to call the police. And some sentences you're supposed to share have levels of danger that are supposed to be indicated. Music's just a little low. Turn it down just a little more. And that's a wonderful idea. How to save someone from a distressing situation. And these code phrases that are now popular, I guess, on TikTok are making the news. And the news is there was a 16-year-old girl who was missing, and she made this "I'm in danger" hand signal from the back of a car to another car, and that car saw her and recognized the hand signal from TikTok and followed her and the car and called the police, and the man who had abducted the woman was arrested, and the girl was saved, all because of this hand gesture that I guess if you're on TikTok you know what it means. Okay, interesting story, leading all the news stories today. And here is my concern with it. What the girl did was the right thing in her situation, but overall, the overall context of how these things happen and shake out and how memes and knowledge is learned and shared is a little bit problematic. It's a little bit of cultural appropriation, but not really, because it's not sign language. It's not really even a gesture. It's just a thing that I guess some people have decided on. To mean something on TikTok. So if you're not on TikTok, you would not understand what that woman was saying. Okay, that makes sense. So the sign is, I've seen it signed many different ways, is this. And then you bring the finger over, which is for, or I've also seen it with all fingers together, which in sign language is a B. And then you're supposed to cover the thumb like that. They do it more like that, which is, looks like an M. You're supposed to trap the thumb. Now I've seen it signed this way, and they sort of this way with that there, which is in sign language for N. And then if you put it over more, it's another sign language for M. Now because that's confusing, seeing this as an N or this as an M in ASL in sign language, they now stick out the fingers. So that is an N. And this is an M. So this is not sign language at all. It might be a TikTok signal, a TikTok gesture, but it's ultimately confusing. And now I'm going to show you why. So this is the official page of where this thing was invented, this sign signal for help. So this is how they describe this signal. Palm to camera and tuck thumb. Okay, we did that. Trap the thumb. And if you notice, the two fingers are up in that image, so that's an N, but they're not calling it an N because they're trying not to call it sign language. Okay? Very confusing. I'm not sure why that particular sign was invented or what it means. But here they explain it, explain. If you see the signal, they're using it for help. Check in with the person safely. And this is the one that interests me the most. These are questions. Does the signal for help stand for something in sign language? The signal for help is not meant to refer to any words, letters, or ideas in American Sign Language. Okay, that's great to say, but that's not how it's being reported. And any other person watching the news or hearing about this story is going to think it's about sign language. People don't understand signals. People don't really understand gestures. People tend to say any movement of the hands to communicate words, thoughts, ideas is sign language. So they're saying it's not sign language. This is designed for as a single hand motion for someone can make during a video call to silently communicate they need support. Deaf community members were consulted on the signal for help prior to launch to check in about the hand gesture. Now, they say they checked with the deaf community, I guess in Canada, but they don't say the deaf community in Canada approved it. They only said they asked for their feedback. Okay, tricky. Now, this is where the whole thing goes off the rails and doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The signal for help looks similar to the brain in the palm of the hand signal. It's exactly the same thing. I'll show you the video. Taught by social and emotional learning SEL programs. These programs may teach participants to use an open hand, trapped thumb, and fist to communicate and regulate emotions. Okay, what that has to do with domestic violence or sending help or getting the police? Not clear, because it doesn't make any sense. And to me, this paragraph comes right after the paragraph talking about the deaf community being consulted but not approving what they're doing. But why should that stop them, right? If someone uses a signal that looks like the signal for help and you are uncertain about what they mean, consider the context in which they are using it. Okay, a woman in the backseat of a car, whatever, making that sign to another person in a car. Not exactly clear what's going on. When it is safe to contact them, you can clarify what they mean and tell you and support them need from you. Okay, so in theory, it's great. Hey, here's a secret sign to indicate you're in distress. But you have to be on TikTok to understand what it means, or you have to be part of the Canadian Women's Foundation and read all this to understand what's going on. So here is the example that the Canadian Women's Foundation has set up to demonstrate how this distress signal works. And I'm going to play it for you now, with captions on.
It was nice to see you again.
Yeah, great to catch up.
Yeah. Oh, can you share that banana bread recipe?
Oh, sure. It's actually my mom's banana bread recipe, but it's pretty foolproof and it's super easy.
Well, I appreciate it. I know your mom is a great baker, so I should be good.
The trick is to grease the pan really well and use overripe bananas. That's my mom's tip.
Okay, good to know. I can't wait to try it. So thanks again for the recipe.
Okay, so that's the video that goes with what we just discussed from the Canadian Women's Violence Against Violence Foundation. Now, I don't think that video helps anything because the receiver of the signal didn't acknowledge in any way that she understood. There should be some counter signal. Yes, I understand what you're saying. It doesn't have to be obvious. It can be something. It can be something made up. I have autoplay on, I guess. Autoplay is on. No, it's not. So there should be some kind of counter signal saying, I understand. You just sent me a signal, like touching your nose, itching your eye, so the person sending the signal knows the signal has been received. Otherwise, you're just talking to yourself. Now, before I show you the next video that disproves everything you just saw in that video, I asked Jana, my wife, about this because she teaches sign language and she is deaf and she is in the deaf community. And she kind of read it, kind of went both ways. She doesn't like this idea you're seeing in the news where they call it silent communication because sign language is not silent. Sign language is very loud and very visual, and deaf people hear with their eyes. So signing is not silent. Now, she said that in the deaf community, D, V, okay, hand shape, the hand shape D, domestic, and shaped V, violence. That is the sign, the signal, the nonverbal communication, silent communication, whatever you want to call it. DV, this hand D, V, is well known throughout the deaf community, sign language interpreters. Anyone who is involved with sign language knows if you say this, DV, you're in trouble and you need help. Absolutely standard. In the deaf community, DV is like calling 911. Situation is serious, I need help. Now I ask you, why couldn't the Canadian Domestic Women's Violence Against group use DV? And I don't believe that the deaf community in Canada didn't teach them DV. It doesn't make sense because that's the sign, DV, domestic violence. I need help. And then you put that on TikTok, and other people see that, and people learn DV means domestic violence, I need help. And instead of having to go into the bathroom and go to the bartender and say, Angela's calling, what if you just went to the bartender and said, and then go back to your seat? And if it's widespread enough, the bartender knows, oh my gosh, she said domestic violence. She's in trouble. I need to go help her. Or a guy. A guy can be in trouble too. DV. So here is the video that the Canadian Women's Group uses to support their use of their invented sign, which is 4M, or perhaps more insulting, BM, as their domestic violence cue.
One of the most rewarding experiences for me has been to study brain science and apply it to the experience of parenting. And the hand model of the brain that I use to teach parents is very useful to understand that. So if you take your thumb and put it in the middle of your palm, put your fingers over the top, this is a very useful model of the brain. And when we can actually see in front of us what's going on in the brain, then we can change what the brain does. So let me walk you through very basically what happens in this brain and the structures in it. And it goes like this. The spinal cord comes up representing the wrist, and then you have coming up into the skull the brain stem and the limbic area, which work together to help regulate arousal and your emotions and the way you have a fight, flight, freeze response. These are below the cortex, the limbic and brainstem areas, and the cortex is this higher part of the brain that allows us to perceive the outside world, to think and reason. And this frontmost part of the brain, right behind your forehead, so the person's oriented like this, is actually the part that regulates the subcortical, limbic, and brainstem areas. This regulation is very important because sometimes we can have all sorts of things happen in our life. We're tired, we're exhausted, someone pushes a particular emotional button, and we can flip our lids. So rather than being tuned in and connected and balanced and flexible, we can lose all of that flexibility, even lose moral reasoning, and act in ways that are terrifying to others, including our children. Now, you can actually bring yourself back online and come back to the high road and make a repair with your child, and that's important to explain to them. And you can also use this hand model of the brain to explain to children, even as young as 5 and 6, how to understand when their emotions are rising up from the brainstem and limbic areas here, and how it's overriding the prefrontal area and making it so they may be about to flip their lids. So I've had kids come tell me that they're about to go flip their lids and they need a break. They need a timeout. And by even just naming that, they can tame it. And that's the power of using the hand model for ourselves and our children to help us all make sense of what goes on in the emotional communication that we have in the course of day-to-day life.
All right, so there you go.
Hello, my name is Dan Siegel,
Whoops.
and it's an honor
We
to
still have
introduce you
auto
to the hand model
play.
of the brain.
Okay, so Now we have the genesis of where the Canadian Domestic Violence Against Women's group got their idea for BM, meaning domestic violence. They took the idea, borrowed the idea, stole the idea, it's all fine, from that scientist who was talking about brain stems and emotional disconnects with young children who can't communicate. This means I'm okay. He just told you in that video, this means I'm okay. This means I'm going to blow my top. So how the Canadians somehow made this and this, meaning domestic violence, when this, what that gentleman just taught us, and that is linked from the Canadian Women's site, means I'm fine, I'm under control, my brain is okay, I don't get it. And if you ask someone from Canada who is deaf, what does this mean? They're going to say bowel movement, or BM, or 4N. I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all in a context of being a way to signal communication with a gesture. So I would like to suggest today, humbly, use DV, domestic violence. It's already established. It works. It has been used with success. And it will mean something. So that's my take on TikTok and how dangerous it is when people who think that they know something and they're experts and they put it out in the world and it propagates and gets put on the news and gets put on TikTok and taught to children, and it doesn't mean what you think it means, except in a very specific, narrow context. If you're a deaf person and someone does this to you from a car and you look at it, you say, oh, they must have to go to the bathroom. They're having a bowel movement, right? You're not going to think domestic violence because that's not the sign. That's not the signal for domestic violence. Now they're trying to make it so, but they're doing over something that is already very clear. But this is a very common effort in the mainstream hearing community for hearing people to decide things for deaf people without asking them and getting their involvement and approval. And it happens all the time at hospitals and doctors' offices, in university, in ASL programs, where you have people making decisions about deaf people and deaf people's lives and the use of the language, and these people don't know the language. They are not fluent. But why should we ask a deaf person? Because they're a lot of trouble. If I want to have a meeting with a deaf person, I have to get an interpreter. And because I'm a school or a program or a doctor's office, I have to pay for it under the ADA. So I'm not going to have an interpreter. This deaf person doesn't use their voice and only signs, so I have to find a way around them and make myself an expert or hire someone who I could pretend to be an expert. And that is happening. The ADA, oh, it protects everybody. No, the ADA is being rolled back in many devastating different ways that the disabled know, but the hearing people don't want to acknowledge because they're the ones doing the rolling back. How can you have a program for deaf adults or a program in American Sign Language and not have the person in charge of that program be deaf? Or be CODA, which is a child of a deaf adult, or someone who is fluent in language, who is immersed in deaf culture. Well, they do. And they don't, and you mention it to them and they don't care. How can you be an advisor? Oh, well, when I was 5 years old, my best friend was deaf. Okay, what does that have to do with anything? How does that make you an expert on sign language or on the deaf community or deaf immersion? Well, it's good enough for the administration. Oh, the administration. Good enough. That's what a lot of disabled people have to put up with now, even with the advent of the ADA. It's good enough. It's close enough. It could be right. It could be perfect. But close enough is okay because it doesn't inconvenience the able-bodied people. It's a big problem. And people are making decisions all the time on the future and on the outcome of the experiences of the disabled based on very limited exposure to the problem, to the disability, and to the language. You have managers who take 1 semester of sign language, which is very limited, can't even really speak in sentences, and they think they have become an expert on deaf education and deaf employment and deaf enrollment in programs. And there you have a deaf person right across the office who is deaf and who is in the experience and grew up in the culture, and they overrule the deaf person because the deaf person is more of an advocate for the deaf than the hearing person who just wants to sign the piece of paper and have it move on. It's good enough. I've done enough. I'm good enough. So that's where some of this disappointment and hostility comes from in the deaf, disabled community, where you have people telling you what to know and think because they have a little bit of exposure to your language and your culture. And this also translates into minorities where, white people tell black people how to feel. Critical race theory, it's all kind of bound up in the same thing of I know more than you know because I took a class somewhere. It's a little disappointing. And you have to wonder what's going to happen as things move forward and things keep getting pushed backward. It's a conundrum that may not have an answer, but we do know that DV means domestic violence. And sometimes if you don't know how to acknowledge back, oh, DV, I saw that on David Boles Live. I know that means domestic violence. That's a deaf person who needs help. How do I tell the person I saw the sign I'll get help? Well, that's where you can gesture. You can nod your head. You can wave. You can do it right back. They'll know your facial expression. Give a thumbs up. That's universal. Okay, I got it. You could shake your hand like this, which means yes, or this, which means understand. But just a simple thumbs up means I got it. I'm going to go get you help. So it's difficult trying to find a path and trying to find the way to righteousness in a world that is slowly being corrupted and crumbled by laziness and disengagement. And we owe it to each other to find simple forms of communication that need to be universal and respected and understood. And how do you fight something going viral that has wrong information and that has very limited meaning on social media? I don't know the answer except to try to have conversations like this and propagate the ideas out there into the real world where things matter and things can change and things can get done. Now, there's more to say about this, but I've probably rambled on long enough. And for right now, we're going to take a small break. Blood pressure break. You know what that means if you've been here before. We will return momentarily. And we are back from our lovely intermission. I thank you so much for sticking around and being a part of this lovely show, David Boles Live, where we do our best to try to make sense of this crazy, indefatigable world. So just a couple more points about the ADA and deaf access and domestic violence and signals and gestures. The ADA was a big thing when it came out and became law of the land. And a lot of people, businesses, mainstream people, were not happy because they were forced to behave in ways that they didn't want to behave. And that meant accommodating disabled people. Like if you are a deaf person and you go to a hospital or you go to a doctor's office, you can tell them, hey, I'm deaf, hey, I need an interpreter. And usually these issues are of the moment. And interpreters cost a lot of money. They can cost $100 an hour, or minimum 2 hours. Some charge travel time. But an interpreter is easy to find. There are agencies. You call up and say, I need an interpreter tomorrow at 2 p.m. And an interpreter shows up. It's that easy. However, people don't want to pay for something that they don't have to pay for. Now, some hospitals have interpreters on call because they know the law. Some interpreters in New York are associated with hospitals, and they're just there from 8 to 5 every day to provide interpreting services. In my experience with my deaf friends, doctors' offices do not want to provide interpreters. They don't think it's their duty or their job. And you think they would because they're doctors, but they don't want to pay for it. So they'll tell you you have to pay for it. Or what they'll do, because they know you're not feeling well, is they'll say, we'll get an interpreter for you, but it takes us 2 weeks. It takes us a month. Or normally it takes 24 hours to get an interpreter. Sometimes you can get an emergency interpreter really fast, but it costs you more money. And so the deaf person is put off because they're in pain or they need help or there's some kind of lesion. And so they either keep the doctor's appointment and try to struggle on, especially with everyone wearing masks today, so you can't see their lips. And you go and you struggle through without an interpreter. And there was a major university on the East Coast, a lot of money, big endowment. If a deaf faculty member needed an interpreter, for many, many years, they'd say, we need minimum 2 weeks' notice. They actually used to have an interpreting staff, and then they got rid of it because they wanted to save money. So now they outsource their interpreter needs. And people say, 2 weeks? My department's having a meeting. I need an interpreter tomorrow. Well, you have to wait 2 weeks, sorry. And this is a major East Coast university who believes that they are woke and that they are equally accessible. Now, lately, over the last year or so, if you need an interpreter, now they say, well, 2 days. Okay, that's much more reasonable, but why, since the ADA started, what did it move to? What did it start at 2 weeks? And then move down to 2 days? It's just outrageous. And do you remember a while back when the ADA first started? And there were lawyers who would sue small businesses because they did not have handicap parking. And handicap parking was mandated by the ADA. You had to have a special kind of paint, a special kind of insignia, a person in a wheelchair. You had to put up a sign saying this is reserved for handicap parking. And even though it was the law of the land, these businesses would not comply with the ADA. So what do? You're a person in a wheelchair, you now have rights under the ADA. Well, you get an attorney and you sue. And there were attorneys who made a lot of money by suing companies and small business people who did not want to reserve parking for the handicapped. And there was a lot of fight and disgust by these small business companies who obviously did not want handicapped people going to their establishments, and they refused to comply because they didn't want to. They didn't want to spend the money. Well, that's where the law steps in and says you are not behaving appropriately, and the law is moral. That's why we have laws. You cannot murder your neighbor. Not just because murder is wrong, but because murder is immoral. And moral does not mean religious. So these attorneys, seeing money, went after these businesses, and now, years later, 20 years later, handicap parking is the norm. And there are cities who charge $750 fine if you park in a handicap's reserved parking stall. And that is absolutely the right thing to do. Because if you're not disabled, you don't need to park there. So compliance under the law usually means it's going to cost you some money. And when these lawyers smarten up and find deaf people who are getting rejected by their doctors and their dentist's office because they will not give them an interpreter, there's more money to be made. And it's appropriate because that's the law of the land. That's what it costs. One more quick little story. Another major East Coast university, a technical school in New Jersey, had a person working in the disability office who had a PhD, very smart. And I'm mentioning PhD because most PhDs don't. They tend to like to do research, they tend to like to teach, they tend to like to write books. Not many people with PhDs become the head of an accessibility office. And word got out in the deaf community, among the very smart deaf community in New Jersey and in the surrounding areas, that this technical school was providing frictionless, ADA compliant, frictionless support for the deaf community. Providing note takers, open captioning, interpreters. And you would go, you would apply, you'd get into the school, go to the disability office, and all of your needs would be taken care of. And the administration of that school went to that PhD person and said, "You're costing us too much money. We're paying $60,000 in interpreting fees for one student for one class. This is impossible. We cannot continue to do this." And that PhD person stood up to them and said, "You have to do it. It's the law." And so eventually what happened is sometimes the states would pitch in and pay some of the interpreter fees, but the basic coordination of it remained with the school. And so what happened? What do you think happened? The school became more restrictive in the how and why of admitting disabled students in order to save money on accessibility and opportunity that they didn't want to pay for. All right, so also over the weekend we learned, relearned, came to know that New York City has a rat problem. Now, basically what this means is we know New York is infested with rats. That's just the way it is in a major city. But it seems like the rat community is bigger than ever because of one thing. This outdoor dining that was created during the COVID pandemic. I don't know if there's a photograph of that in here, but we'll look. But what they are, they're outdoor shacks that are put on the sidewalk, sometimes in the street, and they're homemade, home-built shacks. I don't believe there's any Department of Health inspection or anything. They're just there. And you eat outside because of COVID-19. And it's protection. People enjoy it. They like it. They like being outside, not stuck inside where the air is not circulating and not necessarily clean of COVID. However, because they're eating outside, and there's food and drink and people dropping things, the rats are being fed. And the rats are very smart. So they kind of take up residence in these outdoor shacks that are covered and protected from the elements because people don't want to completely eat outside. They just want fresh air circulating around them. So these are not completely open-air shacks. They sometimes have windows or openings. So all these rats are running around New York City, and they have new homes on the street caused by the pandemic, where people are trying to protect themselves from getting COVID. It's a little silly, but completely expected. Now, the experts say when the winter turns really super cold, the rats go inside and hide. But then they're in there making more rats, and they said the springtime is really going to be messy because they're going to be out in force. And because all the restaurants were closed during the pandemic, the usual places that the rats would go to get fed and get their food was no longer available. So they've taken to the streets to find anything that they can find to eat. It's a mess, but it's also part of the fun of living in New York City, I suppose. Also, in the news, Jan and I watched this movie over the weekend, Finch, Tom Hanks' latest cinematic effort. And we were on our third day of a 72-hour fast, which I will share with you momentarily. And we were both a little hungry, and it was Sunday afternoon. We had to last until 6 o'clock. And I said, well, hey, there's this new Tom Hanks movie on Apple TV, and we pay for it. What do you think? Should we watch that? And she said, Tom Hanks, robots. I said, okay. So we watched, I think, a rerun of Criminal Minds for the 10th time. And then after that was over, she said, how many more hours do we have left for our fast? And I said, about 2. And Jenna said, so how long is the Tom Hanks movie? I said, I think it's 1 hour and 55 minutes. So she said, okay, let's watch the Tom Hanks movie. Okay. So we fired up the Tom Hanks movie. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about spoilers here, so if you haven't seen this movie, I hate to say stop listening, but do something and come back in 5 minutes. I'm not going to spoil a lot. There's not a lot to spoil. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the construction of the movie. 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm assuming you're not listening. So Tom Hanks is this engineer at the end of the world, and the sun is bad, and Aurora Borealis is everywhere, and his best friend is a dog, and a robot that he creates to be his companion, but not really his companion, but the dog's companion, because we learned that Tom is dying. So it's really Tom Hanks talking to himself. Like that one movie he did with the volleyball where he talked to the volleyball the whole time. Well, he basically talks to himself, talks to a robot the whole time, and a dog. And it's a travel movie where they go from one place to another, trying to escape the results of the pandemic, of the sun. It's very slow moving. It tries to tug on your emotions, using a dog and using a robot. And it's not terribly interesting. It was a good mind-taker-offer of the end of your fast coming up in 2 hours, but as something that you would normally watch with your better half or best friend for 2 hours, not a great movie. In many ways, very depressing, not tremendously inspiring either. And the most insulting part of the movie was trying to figure out how they were able to drive this bus thing across all of America when there's really no gasoline that would be left or be usable. And then Tom Hanks dies 10 minutes before the end of the movie, and the robot is taking care of the dog, and they go to the Golden State Bridge, Golden Gate Bridge in the Golden State. And they have this postcard that we've seen the whole movie. That's a postcard from Tom Hanks' dad, but it's not really his dad, but it's his dad. And final place where you only become a human being when you stand on the bridge and breathe the air and listen to the sounds of the steel moving. Okay. So the robot takes the postcard at the end and puts it on the fence with all the other postcards that people have come there to share. And writes on it. And they're like, oh, look at that. Okay. And then there's a moment, this is very weird, where someone has made a drawing on the postcard of a robot and Tom Hanks and a dog crossing the bridge together. Now, that is how the movie ends. And it's a head jerker because you're saying, I just saw that postcard 5 minutes ago, and there was no drawing on it. And Tom Hanks is dead. And the robot has no finger dexterity. He has huge hands. He can't even flip the flip top lid of a can of dog food because his hand's too big. And the dog is not an artist. So you're thinking, who drew that cartoon on that postcard and gave it to the robot? Tom Hanks is dead, he didn't draw it. The dog didn't draw it. The robot is incapable of drawing. So you think, oh, the movie makers ran out of ideas. The movie makers said to the art department, hey, have someone draw a really good cartoon of a dog, Tom Hanks, and a robot. And we'll make that the final image of the movie. And we'll put it on the fence. I mean, you just sit there after 2 hours and think, I sat through 2 hours of that for this? Tom Hanks dying? A robot taking care of a dog? And who's doing these drawings on postcards? It didn't make any sense. So my review of Finch is, if you've been fasting for 3 days, it will take your mind off the fast momentarily. If you're not fasting for 3 days, skip it. Now, speaking of fasting, I'm going to share with you my next bit of information. Yay! Here's my app. I hit my 3-day goal. I fasted for 72 hours and 1 minute and 45 seconds. I ended my fast right on time, as you can see. I did not wait. I ended this fast, and then I started eating. Probably ate a little bit too much, which I'll show you in a moment. But this was really fun, because all during the fast, you get all kinds of your anabolic, your in autophagy, you're in ketosis now. Now you're in deep ketosis. And deep ketosis is where all the cleansing and body fat starts to disappear. But even in a 3-day fast, I was only in deep ketosis for about 25 minutes. So you can see if I had the stamina to go a day 4 or a day 5, I've never gone longer than 5 days. I have a friend who just finished 7 days. Wow, that's big. So I wish I had a little more deep ketosis because, you know, you suffer that long. But for the first time after doing a fast after a long while of not doing a fast, it's pretty good. I'm not terribly disappointed in myself. And people wonder, hey, you know, can you have vitamins, minerals during a fast? The answer is no. You can have black coffee if you must, tea, a lot of water, a lot of seltzer water. And you could take a vitamin if you needed to. If you take medication, take your medication. But if you want a supplement of some sort, you can take it, but it can upset your stomach because there's nothing in your stomach with that. Sometimes you might need a little salt. If you're getting cramped, take a little salt. Even if you're on a low-salt diet. But as far as vitamins, when your body starts burning the fat, that's where vitamins are stored. The fat vitamins are stored. And the water-soluble vitamins you don't really need to worry about or be too concerned unless you're going on a fast that's over 7 days. A serious, no food fast over 7 days. I don't think a lot of people do that, so it's not really a danger or a consideration. You can keep that in mind if you're thinking about fasting. So here's the next really interesting part of our fast experiment. This, Aura. I don't know if you're familiar with Aura or not, but Aura is this little ring that I wear. And I don't know if you can see inside, but it has little things that read my temperature, my HRV, and my heart rate. My camera's going crazy focusing, but at least it's sort of working. And it's thick, titanium, but very light. And right now, Aura is really only great for sleeping overnight, where it really goes after you, tracking you. And during the day, it's okay too. But this is version 2 of the ring. Version 3 is coming out November 15. It has more in-depth tracking, more temperature sensors. I'm already ordered one, and so did Jana Marie. So that's coming, and I will share that review with you when it happens. So this is the 2nd generation Aura ring. And my cardiologist loves my Aura ring because of what I'm about to show you. So there's an app on my iPhone that reads data from my phone via Bluetooth every day. And it updates, and it gives me a report from 0 to 100, usually 50 to 100, on how I'm doing. And if my sleep was good, if my health is good, if my exercising is good, it's all good. And then I know how much I can do, how far I can push myself during the day based on how my night worked out. So this is November 4 that you're seeing right now. And the graph is interesting, but not what I want to show you. This was the first day that we started of our 3-day fast. My readiness was 78, my sleep was 82, and my activity was 86. Now, anything above 80 is pretty good. Anything above 90, I think you get a crown on top of the number, which is really, really good. So my sleep was 82, readiness 78. That's pretty good. That was the first day of the fast. And the ring also reads your sleep stages and your resting heart rate. My resting heart rate while I was sleeping is when they take this. The next generation of the ring will also do this during the day. 54 beats per minute, which is good. 49 beats per minute, which is a little low, but it used to be 35 beats per minute because I was on a lot of medication, and my new cardiologist said, that's too low. You got to be at least 50. So I like that because I have a lot more power. Temperature deviation, I'm up 6.6, and my breathing rate per minute is 13. Okay, that's all within my norm. Now, this is the next day of our fast. Really interesting numbers. Readiness is now 80. Sleep is 86. So you don't eat, you're going to sleep well. My activity, 83. I find it fascinating. Here are my sleep stages. Heart rate, about the same. 53 high, average, 47 lowest. Temperature, however, is up. 1.3. Breathing rate is up almost to 14. That's day 2 of the fast. So I'm doing well. This is the next day of the fast, which is a little harder, day 2. Readiness, 82. Very, very good. Sleep, 78, dropped a little bit. Activity, 82. And I am doing a little bit of exercising, a little bit of weightlifting during my fast, because that's when you start burning the fat. Whoops. And so heart rate was 52. Lowest resting heart rate was 44. So all of that's going down just a bit. Temperature is down. I find I get very cold when I fast. Breathing rate is down again to 13. And then yesterday was the last day of the fast. So I take these readings in the morning. So day 3 of the fast, no food. Readiness is 86. Shockingly good. Sleep is 84. Shockingly good for day 3 of a fast. Activity is 78. You can see sleep time. Resting heart rate is 54. Lowest rate is 46. Temperature slightly up, 0.6. Breathing rate about the same at 13. Now, this is where it gets sort of interesting. So on the day of the 7th, which was yesterday, woke up early in the morning, record the Human Meme podcast at 4 in the morning. That's because it's quietest here at that time. So I didn't get a lot of sleep. See, 6 hours and 25 minutes. I tried to get a minimum of 7 hours, so I was a little short. But the numbers were good. You can't argue with the numbers. And here we go. And then that night, we broke our fast, and we had a little something to eat. A few calories. Okay. So this is this morning's numbers. Tanked my readiness. That has to do with heart rate, HRV. Sleep was good, 82. Activity is very good. Readiness is really down. I slept for 7 hours and 16 minutes. Not a lot of deep sleep. Resting heart rate, here we go. 66 beats per minute. Lowest rating was 60. So that's jumped by about 10 on both ends. Temperature was down, 0.3. Breathing rate was up, almost 2 to 14.5. So what does that tell me? That tells me that eating after a fast, or eating at night and then going to bed soon, within a couple of hours, really affects your readiness and affects your heart rate, because your body is working to digest this new food. And it affects how you feel and how you think and how you move and how you interact. And that's a fascination. As far as trends go, I'm very curious to see what HRV looks like over these fasting days, if I can find it. So let's see if we have a correlation. Average HRV is the dark line. Okay. So November 4, it was a higher number is better, and everyone has a different number. My wife's HRV is 22, which sounds terrible. Some people have HRVs of 70 and 80. Mine is around 60, highest 72. So I was 59 milliseconds. HRV is the amount of time between beats of your heart. So the longer your heart pauses between beating, it's good for your heart because your heart is not working as hard or beating as fast. So 59 milliseconds on November 4. November 5, 59 milliseconds. It's very good. November 6, 49 milliseconds. Went down slightly. That was the last day of the fast. November 7th, back up to 52. Good. And today... Is today there? Yeah, I guess today's not there. So that's all good too. So that's the experience with the fast. Now we're going to take one more small break, a blood pressure break, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about anonymous cowards online and what to do about it and how we try to avoid them. It's a lot of fun. Back in a moment. All right, my friend, we are back. Thank you so much for being here with us, with me, together, David Boles Live. I feel like I've been doing a lot of ranting today. I don't know. Is it education or is it ranting? I guess it depends on context and your vocal expression and your facial expression. I don't know. But I do feel like I'm being a little bit loud today. Not taking very many breaks because I guess when you start ranting, you don't have to go to the bathroom as much. So now we move into our next interesting topic. Our next rave, if you will. And talking about online courtesy, online interaction, online chatting. Now, I have always had the philosophy that if you're going to be online, you don't have the right to be anonymous. Now, people disagree with me on that, and I respect their disagreement. When I am online, I use my real name everywhere. David Boles, Boles Books, everything is look-upable. Now, that protects me from being doxxed because there's no secret I haven't already revealed everywhere online. You can search for me on Google Business and I'm there. Everything's right there. And I like doing it that way because then people know who I am and what I have to say, and they know that what I'm saying is serious and I'm not trying to cause trouble. And on Reddit, my username is David Boles, and you can go to Reddit and look at my history of posting. You can see I try to be helpful. I try to be investigative. I try to ask right questions. I try to be how I am in real life. Should there be a separation between an online persona and an in-person persona? My personal philosophy is you should be the same person. Predictability and behavior is really important, online, offline. I understand there are some people who don't want to have their name revealed when they're in a public setting because they're trying to get help or they need some kind of protection. That's all fine. But what's not fine is when you just can go on there and be somebody and cause trouble and not be identifiable in some way to the security system that's behind you. So people online can verify who they are and then go online and be somebody else. But at least there's one layer of protection from bullying or harassment or being a troll, because in order to be part of the community, you have to identify and verify who and what you are, at least in some way. And as far back as I can remember, I have always been a proponent. Now I'm going to change screens and show you this. I have always been a proponent of this. There it is. I've had lots of blogs, and all 12, 14 blogs were word punk, relationship, and meaningful, dramatic medicine, all put into one blog. David Boles blogs. But as far back as 2008, when I was on Movable Type instead of WordPress, I was requiring people to register and identify themselves on the back end using OpenID. At that time, that was kind of the two-factor authentication. Now it's all different. Now Google is even forcing people to use two-factor identification to secure their computers and their identity online, and also, I believe, to secure Google. That Google knows who you are, and who you are is who you say you are. And that's very important as we move online and personas and personalities become interchangeable and intermixable. So OpenID was a big thing back then in 2008. I don't even know if OpenID is still around. I'm going to click on this and I'm going to find out. It is still there. Okay, that's cool. So OpenID was a way to at that time, on movable type, which is no longer, find a way to identify people for who they are and what they're doing and why are you here. And there were still lots of people who disagreed with me and who don't want OpenID. But here are some people who were my friends or writing with me who appreciate what OpenID does. As my friend Gordon Davidescu says in comments in 2008, it doesn't seem to affect me too much. Reminds me of the New Yorker comic. On the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. Somewhat still true, but not as much. Well, it is true. I guess we're all dogs in some sort of way on the internet. Ask Tom Hanks in his movie. So here we go with what happened last week. In this Twitch stream, you can set up moderators who are robots, and these robots help you keep your chat clean. And I can set up, as the owner of this stream, certain restrictions and requirements that I want to have enabled to protect my chat. Because when I have my blogs and my other places online, I was very strict about who could register, who could comment. People said, oh, if you put restrictions on who can comment and that they have to be registered, no one's ever going to find you. They're never going to comment. And I said, that's okay. I really don't want to hear from you unless I know who you are and where you're coming from and that you're a real person and not an 11-year-old boy. So, I sort of made some requirements on chat here. And two of the basic requirements offered by Twitch are that you have to have a verifiable email address, and the second layer, which most people don't like, and I understand it, you have to verify your mobile phone number. You cannot use a VoIP phone number. Google Voice will not be verified as a Twitch phone number. I found that out. Which is good. They want a mobile phone that goes to a real person. So immediately before you can chat here, Twitch knows your email address, which has to work because they send you verification there, and your mobile phone number, which is verifiable and works because Twitch sends you a notification there and a code number you have to verify yourself to be in chat. So that's probably part of the reason why we don't have a lot of people here in chat, because it's very restrictive. And it has become more restrictive over the weekend, and I'm going to show you and tell you why. So last week we had someone here, Mr. Poopy Pants, I think was the username, something like that, who has now been banned by Twitch for the behavior expressed here. Twitch read the comments that the Poopy Pants person put online and banned them from the service. Which is good. That's how it's supposed to work. But then I realized, I guess my moderation setup was not maybe strict enough. And our friend Dora, who comments here often, and is a good friend, saying, I felt like it was Fort Knox trying to get in here to comment on your article, on the stuff that you're saying. And it's true, because she had to verify her email, and she thought she could get in and chat, and then you get a note saying, hey, no, you have to verify your phone number too. Oh my gosh. Who wants to go through that? I agree. But that's the world we live in today. So that Poopy Pants person who came in here to troll me, and to call names and say grotesque sexual things, had a lot of effort, relative effort, to get in just to say nasty things in chat. Had to verify an email address, had to verify a mobile phone number. So Twitch knows exactly who and what that person is. Even though their username here in public is something like Poopy Pants. So I realized over the weekend, well, I really don't like that happening. So I put some other restrictions in place, upped some requirements to really make this a secure, safe place for people to come and have a conversation. I'm not interested in hateful people. I'm not interested in name-calling or sexual innuendo or grotesque things. And they will still happen, but it takes more dedication on the part of the troll, the poopy pants, to make it happen. So one thing that I changed was once you registered your email and once you registered your phone number, you had to be a member, a following member of this live stream for a certain amount of time. Before, it was a very short amount of time because people usually, when they see you, they want to follow you and then they want to say something, which is what normal, kind people do. But we don't live in a world with normal and kind people. We live in a world filled with some people like poopy pants. So that's okay. So I upped the wait time in order to share a chat comment. And that might drive some people away. Say, oh my gosh, I want to talk about what he's talking about right now. I don't want to wait till later to come back, whatever, and say something. I want to say it right now. Well, once you follow and once you wait out the waiting time, then you can say whatever you want to say. And there are some people like Poopy Pants who might do that. Sign up, find out they can't comment yet, and they'll come back tomorrow and say their nasty things. That's okay. There are multiple ways to deal with that kind of behavior. And unfortunately, on the internet, you still have that kind of behavior. Now, if people were using their real identifiable names in chat, Mr. Poopy Pants is really known as John Smith, and you can click on his name and find out where he lives and where he works, you would not have that kind of trolling in your chat. But we aren't there yet. So as I told you, I rejiggered some things over the weekend and starting the stream. Immediately, we got into another bot fight of moderation. 12 messages were deleted by a moderator. My moderators are bots because I don't have any human beings moderating, but you should. Boles brand, which is my bot account, works with Streamlabs, timed out Pretzel Rocks. Pretzel Rocks is who's playing this lovely music for us. And every once in a while, you see a little something on screen saying, hey, this is Pretzel Rocks. This is the song we're playing right now. So people care about that kind of thing. So my bot account said, Pretzel Rocks, please refrain from spamming symbols. And I guess arrow signs or exclamation points or whatever the Pretzel Rocks puts in their little updates trigger something, and we get in trouble. There, you see the asterisks. That's a symbol. So before the stream started, I thought, okay, so I should fix that because I like seeing what Pretzel Rock says. And my bot account, keeps deleting everything that Pretzel Rocks is saying. So I adjusted that, and so far, with the symbols, we're okay. You're seeing Pretzel Rocks speaking to us in chat. Now, when we were on our most recent break, I came back to see this in chat. But you can't see it because 13 messages were deleted by a moderator. Streamlabs, which is the other side of my Boles brand bot, Streamlabs timed out Pretzel Rocks for 1 second. And here's the message. Bot fight again. Pretzel Rocks, please refrain from spamming caps. Now there must be some song somewhere that Pretzel Rocks was letting you know was the title of the song that I guess was in all caps. Because I've never seen I've never seen Pretzel Rocks post a lot of caps. But maybe because they're being botted out, I don't know. So I guess I need to go in and adjust that too, so we can get caps, a few more caps, not quite so restrictive. But I think it's funny when bots fight. We're all trying to have good intentions, and we're all trying to get things working. But here's the most interesting thing about all of this. When you go into Twitch, and you go into your mod controls and your chat options, you can pick your level of moderation. Now I had this sent to kind of a medium setting, and then I changed it over the weekend to be a little more restrictive. And what this tells you right now, when you see all of these options, and these are all chat settings: aggression, bullying, making fun of people with disabilities, sexuality, sex and gender, misogyny, race, ethnicity, or religion. When you see all of those things listed, and then levels of protection you can have in chat, what does that tell you? That tells you that people misbehave in chat, and you have to put up these fences to keep them out if you don't want it. So you have a maximum setting, you have no filtering, which I think is very dangerous, unless you like that kind of thing. Less filtering, some filtering, more filtering, maximum filtering. Right now, maximum filtering. I mean, if anybody wants to try to say any of these nasty things about being aggressive or bullying or disability or sexuality or gender, I don't want to hear it. I'm not interested. We don't do that on this stream. You can go bully somebody else on some other stream if that's your thing, and they allow it. So in chat, we have a little 2-second delay. And there's already a little bit of a delay from what a person types to when it finally appears on the air. Your overall safety rating. This is what we talked about before. Chat verification must verify email every chatter. Phone verification all chatters. Some people are exempt if they're on staff or if they pay to follow you, which we don't have any paid followers. So when you have a minimum requirement of like 50 followers, a certain amount of streaming, a certain amount of people in chat at the same time, you get to move up, if you want to affiliate on Twitch. Which means that they can run ads on your stream, which you don't really like, but they have to pay for all of this somehow, so I understand it. And people can then, instead of just following you, they can subscribe to your stream, which I believe is like $5 a month, which is terrific. And a lot of streamers make a lot of money from subscribers. You can just follow, which is what we have now. And then in chat, you can set that as the lowest level for involvement in a chat conversation. They have to be a subscriber, which means if someone wants to come in and troll you, like Poopy Pants, they have to pay $5 to do that. Which I love, and I wish I could put that in right now, because, hey, you want to come in and cause trouble and then get banned and pay $5 for it? I love it. Please come in. But we aren't there yet. Right now, we're just follower mode and trying to deal with these people who are coming after us. So that's the Twitch side of this moderation. Now we're going to go to the next level of moderation, which is Streamlabs. Now, Streamlabs, we've talked about before, that is the streaming software that we use right here on David Boles Live to find you. And all these pop-up things, you know, the transitions between scenes, that's all handled by Streamlabs. Streamlabs for Mac. And Streamlabs, as we discussed, also has a bot, which a lot of people really like, and I like it too. They call it CloudBot. And this is the page for setting up CloudBot. And what this shows you, so this works in concert with the Twitch modification we just saw. So this is where CloudBot, Streamlabs bot, Boles brand bot, this is where they're all bound together. Okay? And what does this tell you? Caps protection, symbol protection, which we just saw both of them used. Link protection, word protection, paragraph protection, means people who want to send paragraphs. In our first day of live streaming, a person named Bree, who follows us, who has not been back since, said, hey, you gotta fix your paragraph. I'm trying to send you help and answer questions you're asking, and you have paragraph protection on it. Only let me send 120 characters. You need to either turn that off or up it. So I fixed that. Emote protection. And all of these are on. All of these are set to good restrictive times by Cloudbot. And you can see it in action. We saw Cloudbot in action. This is Cloudbot. This is Cloudbot. That's what all those things you're seeing that are turned on, this is what it's doing. It's taking care of business. And again, what does this tell you? All of these things that you have to turn on, and you have to have protection from and about. Yeah. People do not behave properly online. And so you have to set up a defense, a fence, a defense to keep them out, or to make it a little bit harder for them to come in and whatever, to ruin your day, to ruin your chat, to make fun of people, whatever. So it's good we have all these defenses, but if you don't set them high enough or strict enough, they still get in and make trouble. And even with all of this set to max, that doesn't mean a bad person or can't come in here and start making trouble. And then they just get banned, and then they don't ever come back. Because we do not allow people to contest a ban. So this has been a very interesting stream. We've not had as many breaks as we usually have. Like every 30 minutes we take a break. But I've been so wound up and so crazy about so many things that I thought, well, I guess it's not going to be possible to try to figure out how to combat all of these strange issues we have going on in our lives. But there is one small controversy that I'll share with you before we go today. And that is this. The New York Marathon was held yesterday. And it was the 50th running of the event. And it did not happen last year because of coronavirus. And there's a small controversy going on, which I find really interesting. And it's hard to find the right photographs, so these are the general photographs that I believe to be reflective of the issue that we're talking about. People who are running the race pay an entry fee and they get a free t-shirt. And online there was a lot of chatter about a lot of these runners who pay a lot of money and who try to win medals and awards, complaining about the design of the 50th anniversary running of the New York Marathon. And it ran yesterday. It was very successful. People were very happy. And they didn't like the design of the t-shirt, and I think this is sort of what it looked like. That was very plain. They said other years, the previous years have been elaborate and gorgeous and really interesting. And they didn't understand why why these were so ugly. I think it's this 50th logo that was on there. And they said the medal that you get for participating in the marathon was also very plain and not very beautifully designed, and they didn't understand why. And part of the reason why might be because of the deal they have with New Balance. New Balance is a clothing brand, and they sell official gear for the New York City Marathon. And you have to be a finisher in order to buy this. However, you don't have to be a finisher. You can just go buy it if you want to. But I guess the idea is you wouldn't pay this much money for an official marathon finisher if you didn't actually go to the marathon. So this is what people were sort of complaining about. That this has such a nice look, has the logo on the sleeve, has the logo on the chest, and it's $135. So people are concerned that this is a money grab. They don't like it. It comes in different colors, just like the bolesbooks.org merch store comes in different colors. And here we go. If you like it, just a simple, well-designed t-shirt. Now, the online community or the running community loves this t-shirt They said, why couldn't the free t-shirt look like this? This is a $50 t-shirt. Has color. Huh? $50. See the shorts? See the pants? Also, logo emblazoned. Here we go. $30 shirt, New York City Marathon. A little hoodie. Well designed. Finisher. It's big, I guess. The shirt is $30. The lovely hoodie is $65. Continuing. Another $30 t-shirt. Looks a little plain to me. Looks a little plain to me. But it's affordable. New York City Impact Run winter jacket. Okay. $160 for this. Do we like the color? Is that olive green or army green? I don't know. I don't like that, though. I don't like the color. $65 for this hoodie. Statue of Liberty. Not very high rated. And we continue on. A $55 thermal shirt. A $99 parka running jacket. I don't even see the logo on this one. I think something's missing from that. Here we go with our drab green again. $160. $45 for this tee. So those are the 14 items. So I think these runners who were disappointed in the free t-shirt were onto something. And that something was profit. The New Balance pays the New York Roadrunners Club a lot of money in order to exclusively sell this finishing gear for those who finish the marathon. Some of those I like. I don't know if I would pay $150. I did not run the marathon. But that doesn't mean I don't want to support the New York Roadrunners Club. Well, we didn't get to everything today, but we got to a lot of it. I thank you so much for joining me. It's been a wild ride, these 3, almost now, starting our 4th week together. We've made a lot of changes in presentation. We've had some wonderful conversation. We've had several rants and a lot of outrage, which I hope won't be the standard for this lovely live stream with you every day. But sometimes you have to stand up and share the truth you know. And this conversation today was a lot about communication and morality. We talked about Aaron Rodgers and what he did and what it's going to cost him. We talked about emergency signs and signals and how the communication is just as important as the idea. We talked about the New York Marathon, the communication of a logo. Even if it's free, may not be satisfying enough to the people involved, looking for some more definition and some more excitement for the 50th anniversary of running that race after missing last year's race because of COVID-19. And most importantly, we talked about safety online and what it means to be an anonymous coward and what it means to be an identifiable object. An object meaning you as a person, a persona. Are you the same person online that you are in real life? And that's an interesting question. And we all make decisions about that every day. Am I the same person I am in person, or am I a different person online? And those are moral decisions we make about how we wish to present ourselves. And sometimes you can't use your real name because it's already taken, or you have to pick a username that has numbers in it or something. But that shouldn't change how you behave online and in real life. And in my limited experience, I think that people behave worse online than they do in person. I don't think it's the other way around. I don't think people are really wonderful and kind online and really, really awful in real life. I don't think so. I think a lot of people today still think generationally that being online means anything goes, and whatever I say can't be tracked back to me because nobody knows who I am. Well, the people you're talking to might not know who you are, but the system behind you knows exactly who you are and where you're coming from and what you're doing here and where you've been and where you're going. So there's a false sense of immoral security in these online misbehaviors who think that they're going to get away with something, but really they're not. Well, there were several of the things we hoped to get to today, but we didn't quite do it, so we're going to get to that tomorrow. I thank you so much for joining me here on David Boles Live. Please think of finding us on Facebook, facebook.com/Boles. You can find me on Twitter, @DavidBoles. Instagram is Boles Books. Twitch, Boles Books. YouTube is Boles Blues. And if you'd like to check out things, donation page, merch store, bolesbooks.org. That'll take you right there and show you a lot of stuff. But until tomorrow, I wish you a good day, happy thoughts, positive feelings, and I will see you, I hope, tomorrow, perhaps in chat, perhaps just knowing you're with us in a follow. And I do ask you to follow if you're enjoying any part of this stream, because it does make a real difference in how Twitch and these other streamers, online streaming services, view us. The more followers, the more better. I thank you so much. I'll see you again soon.